Okay, so I wanted to record a video of a presentation that I put together about the different classifications of drugs because I know that you guys did that activity the other day, but you know, not everybody's answers were 100% correct. And I think it's good for you to hear what I would have said in class or as close to it as possible. Although I will tell you that in the past, I have assigned groups, and you would have had to have researched a drug or a couple different drugs, and you would have put together a presentation and given it to the class, and then you would have taken notes on everybody else's presentation. So obviously that cannot happen. So I'm just going to do a presentation for you that I created myself, and hopefully I don't talk too much. Otherwise, I might have to make two of these. But all of the information on slides 1 through 18 is directly from the DEA website that I had you guys look at for the class activity the other day. So here we go. Let's get to business. So these are the drug classifications according to the DEA, and I basically go in order, and then I have some slides possibly after the classifications so that I can tell you a little bit more about some of the major drugs that are out there. So here are the classifications, and then, like I said, you'll see some of the drugs. And then there's some additional resources at the end and some pictures, which are pretty interesting. So first, stimulants. So stimulants is a classification of drugs that speed up the body's system. So what does that mean? Well, it means that your heart is going to beat faster, your breathing is going to be faster, your body temperature is going to be higher than normal, and you're going to have higher blood pressure. You're going to have lots of energy. It's going to be difficult to sleep, so the word insomnia should come to mind. And typically, it also suppresses your appetite. So people who use these drugs may be thinner than your average person. So caffeine and nicotine are two drugs that are stimulants, and I do not talk about those in this presentation, but they are stimulants. Diet pills also, so amphetamines that are diet pills, and then some prescription medicines like Ritalin and Adderall, which are prescribed for people who have ADHD, which is interesting that if you have ADHD, the H stands for hyperactivity, but giving somebody a stimulant can counteract those things that are happening in their brain. So I want to focus on the illegal drugs, which would be cocaine and methamphetamine. So cocaine, again, all this information came from the DEA website, so I even used their pictures. Obviously, there are tons of pictures out there that you could see, but cocaine comes from the coca plant, not cocoa plant, which is what chocolate comes from, but the coca plant. And it's grown in Central and South America. When I was in college, I was lucky to go to Peru, and there are people in Peru and in Central and South America who use cocaine for medicinal purposes, but we do not use that in America. You can also boil those coca leaves, and they will drink it like tea, and it's supposed to counteract the feelings you have of getting altitude sickness. Okay, so powdery white substance, cocaine also can be turned into crack, which looks more like a rock, and so I do not have a picture of that here. For the sake of time, I wanted to just combine everything into one slide. So typically people snort it, or they can dissolve it in water and inject it. Crack is going to be smoked in a crack pipe, and crack is a lot more dangerous than cocaine, but cocaine is very addictive. It goes by names like snow, blow, coke, crank, and I'm not telling you all of the street names that are out there for these drugs. I just tried to include the most common, or maybe the ones that had been around for the longest. So effects on the body, it does cause an intense high, so the word for that would be euphoria. And then there's going to be a crash afterwards. So they're going to want more because they don't like the feeling of that crash. Like I said, high rate of addiction, high rates of overdose, and users are paranoid and anxious. Another thing I want to point out is that when people snort cocaine, they can injure the lining of their nose, so they're more likely to suffer from nosebleeds. Okay, then we have methamphetamine, which is also a stimulant, and it's an illegally altered version of prescription drugs that are amphetamines. So I don't have it all listed here, but there is a long list of ingredients that go into making or cooking meth, and some of those ingredients are extremely dangerous. They're things that you put in your car, battery acid. They use Sudafed, or you might hear ephedrine or pseudoephedrine. And those are things, I mean, with a lot of other stuff that is put into meth. So it is really disgusting. It is dangerous. People can smoke it, snort it, inject it, and even swallow it. There are some of the street names right there. Probably the most common you've ever heard is just calling it meth, but speed, crank, trash, chalk, biker's coffee, because it's something that motorcycle gangs have been known to use. For a while, before we knew how dangerous it was, a lot of truck drivers were using it because it gives you such an amount of energy that they could stay awake and be able to drive their routes. College students were using it. So it is like way stronger than any caffeine or energy drink that you could ever have. It's highly addictive, it can cause heart attacks, it messes with your breathing and your body temperature. People are very agitated, and it also decays your teeth if you are to smoke it, which causes meth mouth. So the second category of drugs is going to be depressants, and they're going to be the opposite of stimulants. They slow down all of your body processes. They make you sleepy. It slows down your breathing, your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, your body temperature is going to go down. And there are prescription drugs that are depressants that are very helpful in helping people sleep if they're struggling with insomnia. It can relieve anxiety and muscle spasms. And there are medicines that help prevent seizures. So as you know, I told you about my child who had epilepsy, and he was on some very serious depressants. So the term barbiturates or benzodiazepines, sometimes called benzos, those are prescription medicines that are depressants. Alcohol is also a depressant, which you're going to learn about more later. And then the illegal drugs, GHB and Rohypnol, are depressants. So GHB is one of the depressants, and it is a date rape drug. And so that means that sometimes it is slipped into someone's drink so that they can be sexually assaulted. If you look in the picture, it is clear, it is colorless, it is odorless. So people do not realize that it has been put into their drink. So it is swallowed. It looks like there's some powder in that picture, so you could probably snort it as well. Street names, G, Goop, Georgia Homeboy, which is a play on the initials of the drug. Grievous bodily harm, Liquid X, because people try to use it like it's ecstasy. It's going to make you drowsy, but there is a feeling of euphoria or being high. It can cause hallucinations, seizures, vomiting, unconsciousness, and can put somebody into a coma. Another depressant is Rohypnol, and this is probably the one that you've heard of when you think of a date rape drug. This is probably what you think of when they say roofies. So the pills are usually white circles like you see in the picture, but recently they have turned them into green oval pills so that it would dye a drink blue if it was put in there. So obviously it is swallowed. You might hear other names like Forget Me Pill or Circles, Lunch Money Drug, Mexican Valium. Effects on the body, it's going to slur your speech, decrease your coordination, confusion, memory loss, drowsiness. Like basically, it's like multiplying the effects of alcohol by a lot. So memory loss, I mean, that's really important because if somebody puts this drug in your drink and then they assault you, you're not going to remember what happened. Designer drugs are not natural. Okay, cocaine comes from a plant, right? Some of the other drugs that we're going to talk about come from a plant, but designer drugs are made in labs. Synthetic marijuana, okay, mimics the effects of regular marijuana, flocka, and bath salts. So the main one that I'm going to focus on is going to be bath salts. And bath salts are synthetic cathinones. So you may have seen the term cathinones in another category, which would be stimulants. But synthetic cathinones are when they are using stuff in a laboratory to try to mimic the effects, right, of cocaine or ecstasy or methamphetamine. So they look like Epsom salts, looks like something you would put in your bathtub, but they're mostly sold online, and they may be labeled bath salts, glass cleaner, plant food. It might say not meant for human consumption. They are extremely dangerous. They've only been around for a short while. Like when I was your age, nobody even knew what bath salts were. They hadn't even been created yet. So they can be snorted, swallowed, smoked, or dissolved and injected. Some of the street names on the label, they might call it Vanilla Sky or White Lightning or Bliss. And those all sound possibly like things that you would put in a relaxing bath, right? But they cause insomnia, irritability, paranoia, hallucinations, sweating, vomiting, panic attacks, seizures, suicidal thoughts. They are very addictive. And there have been stories of people who were on bath salts who have done some really, really dangerous things. They've actually referred to it as the zombie drug before. So I'm looking at how much time I have left, and I know that I'm not going to be able to finish this presentation in less than 4 minutes. So I'm going to stop it. I'm going to make a part 2 to this video because there are some things that I want to tell you, and I want to not have to rush through them. So get ready to watch part 2.